Welcome to Bigfoot Odysseys, a researcher's reports. I'm Kerry Arnold. With me, as always, producer and co-host of the report, Miss Daniela Iolo. How are you, dear?
I'm good, thank you.
Good, good, good. Our guest for this evening, he is a researcher, Sasquatch researcher, and eyewitness, Mr. Jason Goldring. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Man, thanks for joining us here tonight. We'll give it a few seconds to get a few people to usher in. Just want to remind everybody, keep it clean for us in the chat. We appreciate it. No arguing amongst each other. Try to keep the language clean and neat for us. We do have the best moderators on YouTube. And big shout out to Miss Colleen Rivard and Miss Lynn Keogh for our PayPal donations this week. We thank you so much. Fantastic. Lindsay Bay also. Sorry about that, Lindsay. Okay, we'll just give it a couple more seconds.
Sure.
What you been doing brand new on Hidden Existence, Daniela?
I've been going for a walk.
That's it.
Taking,
You did something pretty cool, though.
I think so. Last Saturday, I just took the dog out for a walk, and it's just a nice little place where I'm at. And I've never gone live from my phone. And we always say, don't we, get up to 1,000 subs if people can go live from their phone. Right. And I thought, I think I'll try it. And the next thing, I've got a few folks on there, and I'm going for a walk around my local castle and church and chatting away and showing people a bit of England and old history. And I think they really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's a cool castle. That place is awesome. Of course, England's been around. There's thousand-year-old stuff there, still standing. But all right, well, y'all go check that out on Hidden Existence right now, and also go check out on the Shudder, because I told Jason's story on episode 38. This Sasquatch in Ontario. There's a couple more in there, but the story Jason sent me, we're going to get into some of the details of that here in just a minute. Jason, why don't you tell us what even got you remotely started in this? Was there anything before this happening, or was this the linchpin?
There was nothing. You hear the term Bigfoot or Sasquatch, and it didn't really click into me because I thought it was fictional. I really did. Camping, going out to my aunt and uncle's cottage, going fishing and that sort of stuff, I started to recognize the outdoors and hearing noises and things that I became familiar with, so I felt comfortable. But there was nothing prior to that made me think like there is something else out there.
Well, why don't you just kind of walk us through what happened that day, and then we'll Daniela and I will have a few questions for you. We'll try to cover the basic stuff, and then last 20 minutes or 15 minutes of the show, depending on how things go, we'll take questions from the chat. Just make sure you guys in the chat, if you have questions, put them all in caps for us and try to save them for we'll let you know when to put your questions up, but make sure they're all in capital letters. This makes it easier for us to find. All right.
Okay. So it started off in 2000. It was between spring and summer, and I traveled up to this lake. It's a very long, shallow lake, but it's very tranquil. Towards the south end of the lake were cottages, albeit just a few. The north end of the lake, no one went up there. I don't understand why. There were no cottages, there were no nothing, but that's where I like to camp. It was quiet. And I was familiar with the place. I know what it sounds like when a bear is running through the bush or a moose or something like that. So, I carried protection and that sort of stuff with me, but I just felt really comfortable. And I just felt that like something was watching me. Something like I just didn't feel like myself. It was really unusual because I've never felt that before. It was really unusual. But when I got up to the top of the lake, I set up my camp, and I could even scoop a cup of water out of the lake and drink it. It's that clear, it's that clean. And I did that a couple of times, and everything was going fine. But trolling up towards the end of the lake, even though I didn't catch anything, so my luck is crappy, but it was one of those sort of things where I had a heightened sense of awareness. I felt like something was watching me, something was looking at me, and I was looking around and I couldn't figure out what it was. And then when I got to the camping area, I heard a huge splash, and I can see the ring of water washing towards the boat. And the first thing I thought was, okay, it's probably a beaver. It's just slapping its tail. And next thing I know, before I turned my vision off that area, I saw a huge, well, not huge, but a big rock fly down and hit the water again. And this was only about 50 yards from my boat. So at that point, I figured someone is playing around with me. There's someone up there. So I grabbed my set of binoculars and I scanned the ridge line of this, I guess you could call it, well, I guess you could call it a ridge. It's very high, and I couldn't see anything. So I kind of let it go. I went back out again to do some more trolling up the lake, down the lake, that sort of stuff. It started to get a little bit dark, so I came back to the camp, have some dinner, and it was just when I walked to the lake edge to wash my dishes, and I heard this most blood-curdling scream, yell, growl, however you want to depict it. And I was like, I've never heard this like before. This is not a bear. This is not a moose. This is not a coyote. This is something that I've never heard before. And it shocked me. Like I was scared. And it was at that point that I thought to myself, you know what, if it comes down to it, I don't want to go home yet, but if I have to, I'll take the boat out into the middle of the bay, drop the anchor, and sleep in the boat overnight. It was actually terrifying. I could feel the hairs in the back of my neck peak up and the hairs of my arms peak up. Like it totally stunned me.
Wow. So you actually got to look at something, right? Like just a dark.
Well, afterwards, when I guess you could say it almost like during the evening time, well, it was dusk, I had to take the spotlight out of the boat and shine it up on the ridge line. That's when I saw it. And it, like, I was just shining the light on it, and it stood still for a moment staring at me. And I'm trying to figure out, like, why would you stare at something like so bright as a spotlight without it hurting your eyes? Like, you normally turn away. And this thing was just staring at me, and then it moved very quickly off to the side. And I'm looking at it, and I'm trying to make a point of reference, thinking, okay, it's this tall, it's this tall, it's this tall. So when I went up there, a little while afterwards, I went up there a couple of weeks later with a trail camera. I walked over to those trees and I'm thinking to myself, okay, I'm 5'4". I'm not a big person. This thing was huge and it had very, very dark hair, almost like a silhouette, like a shadow. And it just scooted across the land. The only thing I could think of is behind it is a electricity right away where there are these power poles
Mhm.
and like high voltage poles. And I think they use those to, obviously uh, commute, walk back and forth, but also as a point of reference. That's what got my interest up. It's like these things have intelligence. They know what they're doing. And that's where I got into the Bigfoot research, the Sasquatch research.
Absolutely. No, I believe these creatures are no different than anyone else. If they have an opportunity to walk clearly through something, I don't see why they wouldn't. Even though they might be, somewhat exposed, still you're talking about, an electric right of way for, high power lines. No one's ever out there unless they're working on the power lines or it's going through someone's property and they happen to be out there. Just heard of so many sightings in places like that, just on the edge of those cut over power lines. So it makes me believe that these creatures use those things for travel corridors and, like you said, points of reference. Easily they can know exactly. Not that, I mean, who knows? They may know every leaf in the woods and know exactly where they are at all times. Not that it would really matter. But you've been pretty much researching ever since then, right? Do you go back to this area?
I've been back there and I've been to other areas too, and it's based solely on the fact that I had a group of individuals. There were 5 of them who were interested in what I was talking about. And because of the fact that we didn't really find anything that was conclusive, they started to drop off. But the more I think about it, the more I think, well, this is one of the reasons why we haven't found this creature yet, is because it wants to remain elusive.
Right.
So I've got this one individual who's stuck with me on my side, and he comes out when he can. I've got myself a camper, and he got scared one night. He said, I really don't want to do this anymore. And I said to him, well, what happened? He said, I went out last night. He said, you were asleep. He said, I went out to use the bathroom and I heard something in the bush. And he said, I know the difference between bipedal and quadrupedal. And he said, something was walking in the bush. And I came right back to the trailer and I was like, okay, well, do you have any idea what it was? And he says, no, but I'm just not doing this anymore. So I took it upon myself to, explore more, because this, as a child, when I used to go up to this lake, I didn't experience anything like that, but I've kind of broadened my horizons and gone out to different areas within local proximity and seeing unusual things. Like, yeah, there's impressions. Sorry, I got to turn my light on. I've seen impressions in moss and lichen, and it's like, this is not right. This, like, there should be nobody here.
Right.
There shouldn't be. Like, even the place where I was camping, you can't walk there. You have to traverse waterways and that sort of stuff. But there were weird imprints in the ground and that sort of thing. And I just kind of looked at them and casually blew them off, thinking, all right, maybe someone was here. but it was just unusual. It was extremely unusual. Now, what strikes me as being very odd was the way that the sounds went. When the screams, the growls, or whatever you call them, happened, there's an echo that happens. And because we're kind of on a gorge, and I was thinking, okay, is it coming from there or is it coming from here? And I sort of figured it out. Like I figured out it was coming from a specific area up at the top of the ridge, because every time it rang out, I would turn my ear and I could hear it much more clearly to the top of the ridge than what I could hear from across the lake. So at that point, I knew something's up there possibly observing me. So they're studying me rather than me studying them.
Right. And to me, it doesn't take a whole lot of imagination. When you're out there, things can already kind of get to you.
Yeah.
If you're, especially if you're by yourself and you get that creepy feeling, say coyotes, for instance, if you hear coyotes off in the distance or even wolves,
Yeah.
you're probably safe, but it still does something. It still kind of creeps you out a little bit. Just there's something about it. I don't know. And so and once you get that feeling, and then the evidence is starting to pile up. You've seen this. There's a fly in here. I swear he's been in here since March. I'm gonna get him. He's flying slower and slower. He's starting to slow down. I'll get him eventually. He just buzzed me. But you know what it is. You don't have to see it. When you're out there and you hear this loud scream, these huge rocks hit the water, the process of elimination tells you it's either somebody who's extremely strong and stupid, or it's got to be one of these creatures, one of these things that people have been seeing, the Sasquatch. Even, I mean, you don't have to have it on your brain, a lot.
No,
I wish I would have, or I would have noticed long before, the signs. But
you don't. I mean, even the first incident that I had when I went up there, I even yelled out, even though I couldn't see anyone. I said, "Hey, I'm armed." And okay, fine.
That should be enough for a normal person.
Yeah, get out of here. Don't bug me.
Right. But you go ahead, Danielle.
I was going to say, when you said before about, you feel like they want to remain elusive. That's kind of how Kerry feels as well. So why do they present themselves when they don't have to sometimes?
I believe it's an invasion upon them, their space. This is where they live. This is where they hunt. This is where they feel peaceful because there's no one around. I think it's more territorial than anything else.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's this intruder, this other, hominoid, for lack of a better term, with intelligence that they don't know we can't do what they can't do. And we've got all these gadgets. When you mentioned trolling, I was thinking there's probably a lot of people that don't know what that means. So I'll explain that really quick. Trolling to most people is someone on here, trying to get your goats online.
Trolling. Yeah.
It's a trolling motor on a boat that kind of eases you along really slow instead of hooking up the big motor and getting after it.
Yeah.
So that's what trolling is for those that didn't know. And you may all know, I don't know, but I thought about that. I was like, I wonder if someone thinks he's talking about something else. So
it saves money on gas.
There you go. Absolutely. You're just going to run your battery down pretty quick.
Yeah.
Unless you have a generator with you. But, so what else have you found? You took the trail cameras up there. Tell us what happened with the trail camera.
Well, the trail camera picked up a moose, and then there were 2 shots that were taken within about 2 seconds of each other that had nothing in them, but for some reason it triggered. And it was at that point I was sitting there, like even in Photoshop, I was looking at them, trying to figure out, is there any animal or anything in there? And I couldn't see a thing. And I'm trying to figure out, why did it trigger? Like maybe it was just a bug that flew past it, but I've never had that problem before. So, it was at that point I started to get a little bit more curious. And I bought some more trail cameras. I set them up there, and I get fox, coyote, that sort of stuff. Okay, big deal. But nothing indicative of what I experienced. This noise, this sound was far too guttural, far too deep for it to be a small animal. This was something big. And even my friend, who kind of bailed out on me, had said, this is too creepy for me. I'm like, what's creepy about it? And he said, I just can't do this. You're looking for something that doesn't exist. It's like, it does exist. I'm not listening to fake sounds or whatever. Like you've got to understand, you got to stay up here enough to realize what I'm experiencing and what you could potentially experience. And he just would have nothing to do with it.
Well, what's his name and address? We'll take care of him. No. But well, that's part of the issue here to me is you either have to be extremely lucky or you've got to be pretty diligent just to find evidence. First, you got to go where they are. That's one thing. Finding, an area where, you're pretty sure they're there, and they may not be there all the time. Who knows what their range is? That's another thing. But just finding evidence, there's something that wants to remain hidden. If they're just predisposed to it, I think it's born in them. They hide even in the dark. They're just trying to hide.
I think so too. It's much like that audio clip I sent you. It's like this walked right by our camp.
Right. Well, what I was trying to say was they're trying to hide. So they're not going to leave a lot of evidence that they're around. You think they're going to be aware that they do leave tracks. And if they do leave them, it's probably intentional or there's nothing they can do about it.
Right.
You hear so many stories about them dragging a limb behind them or walking backwards in their own tracks or taking large bounds and leaps just to not be, tracked. Now, we're going to get into the recording that you sent us, but we all want to hear the story first. Then we'll play that recording.
So we had set up a tarp, basically a tarp tent. We didn't have an actual tent. It was set up by tarps and tree sticks. Out the front was a small little tarp to park the ATV under. We took the ATV out. Sorry, not ATV. It was a mule. We took it out. We went up the road. We went about a mile away, and I left the recorder going. Just, whatever. I'll leave it going. Came back, and I didn't bother going through the whole recorded audio that I had because I'd have to sit there and listen to it and listen to it and listen to it. So when I got home, I plugged it in the computer and I was looking for spikes in the audio chain. And I saw this one and I was like, what the heck is that? And I cut and pasted it into Audacity and I played it and I was literally blown off my chair. I was like, what the heck is that? And I sent it to one of my friends and he goes, it's something walking and breathing. I said, right by our camp? And he goes, yeah.
How
It's
long were you
something,
gone?
what we were gone for a good hour and a half.
So plenty of time. And that was the time frame that this walking up, because that's what it sounds like to me. It sounds like Darth Vader and walking.
Well, and even more so, the fact is that, was it in the bush the whole time looking at us until we left?
Right.
And that's what creeps me out.
I can imagine anybody that's ever been in any woods anywhere has been watched at some point in their life.
Yep.
It is kind of creepy to think back. I used to do it. I camped out by myself in the area where I had my sighting, and there's no, I mean, I can't count the amount of times I camped out there, and I know they were watching me. I know they were. I think about those things now, and just I kind of shudder a little bit when I think about it.
Yeah, you do, and you know, it made me feel a little bit uncomfortable about going to bed that night, because it's like, there's something out there. There's something out there watching us, because it came. Okay, we were out for an hour and a half, but it came right into the camp, walked right by the microphone, and just continued on. I don't know if it was looking for food or sniffing or doing something like that, but it's like, I'm not comfortable sleeping here. I'm going to sleep in my truck.
Heard that. And I think they're to me. I think they're opportunists. You know, I don't trust them one bit. I think if because people say, and it's not that they don't have a valid point when they say it. They didn't hurt you. They could have come in and got you if they wanted to. Well,
Yeah.
I think if there's a real opportunity there, that I think if they believe they can get away with it, I think they will hurt you. I do.
Yeah, for sure.
I think
For
they'll
sure.
get you. I think they take people all the time. That's just I don't know. That's what I think. The whole missing 411 thing gets me too. Gets me going.
You look at the deer and the wolves and all that have been strung up in trees. It's like, how did they get up there? Something's thrown it, or you know, it just doesn't make sense to me. This is what raises my curiosity, with the fact that there is something out there that's got huge muscular power and can do this sort of stuff.
Absolutely. Well, Daniela, you got that clip?
Yeah.
Let's hear this clip.
Not think they'd be killing people all the time if they're that way out.
Well, we don't know that they're not.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
That's what I mean. You know, you'd think there'd be more.
Like I said, opportunists. I think it has to be the right time, and I'm not saying that they do. I just wouldn't put it past them. I think if they have the opportunity to take you out, that they've had plenty of opportunities to take me out, but I think sometimes there's a level of tolerance there, and I think they tolerated me for long enough. And when I finally crossed the line, that was it. They let me know, you're doing stuff we don't like. Get out.
Yeah.
I did. That was enough for me. But here we are because of it. So
I'll play this clip.
Silver lining. Play that clip.
Play it again.
Yeah, play one more time.
And I have no idea what that was, but I don't want to meet it.
You think something that's breathing like that, do they just quit doing it when they're sitting in the bush? Are they only breathing like that while they're up walking around? You know, you'd think you'd hear that somewhere else if they were close by.
Unless it's maybe labored because it's carrying something, which is what I've learned too, because deer are 200, 300, 400 pounds. So it's got something slung over its shoulder, perhaps.
Good point.
or it's carrying something in its arms. I have no idea, but to hear that, it almost sounds like it has asthma.
Well, to me, the suspects are limited. It's either somebody, or to me, it's either somebody or it's one of these things. I can't think of any other animal, known animal. I don't want to say known. Let's say recognized animal that does that. A bear. I don't think bears do that, do they?
A bear snorts, kind of
Right.
like, and yeah.
And you live
No.
What part of Ontario is this?
This was up at a place called Still River, which is just north of Parry Sound. And let's say it's about 250 kilometers north of Toronto.
Okay, because I saw a few people were asking in the chat. I saw some questions up there earlier. Make sure you put those up here in just a little bit. We're going to be taking questions actually.
Yep.
So just have to repost them because we can only go back so far on the scrolling there.
Sure.
I was just letting everybody in the chat know to put their questions up there in here. We'll probably do it in just a few minutes, but I wanted to ask you what are your plans for the future? Do you have any plans of doing anything of note with the subject?
So between my wife and I think we're fed up with camping. We don't like setting up the tent. We don't like the bugs or anything like that. So we're going to get a bigger trailer and just basically tour the US once they open up the borders. And northern Ontario. It's something we enjoy doing, but at the same time, I like going out at nighttime and just walking around. I've got my flashlight with me. I've got my handgun with me and all that sort of stuff. So I'm fine, but I like going out at nighttime because that's when you really start to hear the forest come alive. And it's at that point when you realize the sun comes up and things totally change. Like it gets dead silent. It's like, where did everything go? Everything seems to come out during the nighttime. Bats and owls and birds, and it's like, what happened? Like, where are you? You know what I mean? But
Sure.
I do want to explore more of the central Ontario area, only because of the fact that 3/4 of the population of Ontario lie around the Great Lakes. When you go, let's say, 2 hours north of Toronto, there's nothing. It's such a sparse population. And so it stands to reason that there would be a lot more animal life, potential Sasquatch life, that sort of thing that could be out there. But I've also heard as well is that when you said opportunists, yes, they are, because they might come into town, open up a garbage dumpster and start digging in. And yeah, and it's like I want to figure out what it is. I really do. And until I do, I'm going to keep on this endeavor to see what is going on.
Well, I hope you figure it out and let us all know. Me personally, I believe they are. You're going to find you don't have to go deep off into the heart of darkness to really find them. I think you're going to find that most of the time they may not live there, but they're going to be hanging out on the periphery.
Yeah.
Right there on the edge, watching us for whatever, maybe for people have said for entertainment. I think that they don't trust us. I don't think they absolutely are right for not trusting us. And they keep an eye on us. And I think they watch us and understand us, understand our notions and our
Right.
ways. And they just, like I said, they just know us. And that's why I think it's easy for them to fool us. No different than a magician fools somebody right in front of their face. I think they just know us that much, and they know they've got every ability and hiding. There's something that I have this theory about about game cameras, and I think it's the hair. You look at some of the studies were done by M.K. Davis, Mark Zasky, where they take this hair, and put it under microscope, flash a light on it, and it just comes alive with colors, and it's just like it's alive with this light on it. And I believe the hair, as a camouflage, takes in light and just absorbs it, doesn't reflect. It just
so it's a natural camouflage.
A natural camo, just like just like a heat wave or something, man. Maybe this is this cloaking thing that people are seeing, and maybe it has to be in a certain light situation when that happens. But I think that's why they don't set off game cameras, is they're not triggering that infrared light. It's not bouncing back to the camera. It's getting dispersed or absorbed in and not bouncing back. I theorize this a lot, that they have walked in front of game cameras quite a bit. They just don't set them off when they do. There was a video by Les Stroud, was a while back, that he put up, where he put apples up on this tree, and he had pictures that went off with the game camera where the apples were still there, and the next picture comes on, the apple's just gone. So something had to get in there and get it and not set off the camera. And that was just part of kind of what clued me to that, with the whole, just putting things together. I just think that's the case. I think if you're going to do a camera, a plot watcher that just takes a picture every 5 seconds.
Yeah,
no matter
exactly.
what, is going to be, a better idea. We'll start taking questions from the chat. Daniela, do you have anything else basic you want to cover here?
People just wanted to clear up again. Whereabouts were you from in Ontario? Is it Ontario? Sorry.
I'm between Toronto and Hamilton. I'm in a small little hamlet called Dundas. And yeah, I'm about 40 minutes to Toronto and about 20 minutes to Hamilton.
What do you feel about gifting? Is it something you do?
I wouldn't. I'm kind of torn on that. I'm kind of torn on gifting, because it's imposing that you're always going to be giving them something. I want them to come to me, whether or not they're ticked off and start throwing rocks at you. But I don't. It's almost like giving a dog treat. It's always going to expect it. I don't want to do that.
Okay, that's fair enough. Have you got a channel on YouTube? Have you got any theme?
Not right now.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll start taking some questions here. Make sure you put those questions all in caps for us, please. That makes it a lot easier for us. If you put your questions up earlier, you're gonna have to put it up again, because we can't scroll back to it. I think it's only 50 that we can scroll back to, and you guys talk to each other a lot, so they're gone pretty quick. Again, before we take those, just want to say a big thank you to Miss Colleen Rivard, Lynn Keogh, and Lindsay Bay for the PayPal contributions this week. You guys are just fantastic. Can't tell you how much that means to us, especially right now. Not asking anybody for anything. Just want to thank those that do that for us. Thank you so much. All right, what we got?
Got a question from Andy Pop. Andy Pop's Gunners.
Yeah, he changed his name.
Do you think Sasquatch hunt moose, or possibly use them in the north as watchers, alert system potentially?
Use the moose as an alert system? I don't know. Moose are not really afraid of people very much, are they?
No, they typically charge after people. I think moose are territorial in the sense that most moose, which it's kind of unusual because I've seen them on the top of the ridge, but they like water. They really like water. They like swampy water. They eat seaweed and grass and that sort of thing, and they stink. Um, but it perhaps, but I think you're right. I don't think they get scared easily.
Yeah, when it comes to Sasquatch, and I absolutely think they would take down a moose if they had to. But again, you're talking about a sentient creature, this being that to survive, they have to understand at least a part of conservation and, not depleting all of their resources. And me personally, I think they're omnivorous. I don't think it's just meat that they eat. I think they do eat meat. Absolutely. I think it's just, to me, absurd to think that they don't, especially with everything that we've heard. I know for a fact they took deer from me. I know they did.
Mm-hmm.
So there's too much evidence for it. But I think also that just because they see one, I don't think they're just going to go and get it. I think it's, like I said, I think it's all situational. Who do you have to feed? Maybe they're not big on waste. Who knows?
Right. And you have to think about seasonal changes too. Up here, we've got our winter. We'll get 2, 3, 4 feet of snow. There's no plantation whatsoever. So they're forced to living off of meat, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry. I was looking through the questions here.
You'll have to tell you, are you aware of any stories of them swimming when sitting in a boat trying to sleep?
Never, ever.
That would have been uncomfortable.
That would have been uncomfortable. That's when I turn on the motor and get the heck out of there.
like the original Friday the 13th, where Jason, the kid, comes out of the water and grabs the girl. Yeah, that would have been
good. For all my research that I've done, I know that they will wade. They'll go in the water. They'll pick up turtles and that sort of thing. But I've never heard of one swimming.
I just told some stories on the Shudder where these people from Mississippi were vacationing in California, and it's right at dusk dark, and they see this massive guy just walking down the beach. They're in this little cove. It's private.
Yeah. Okay.
And he's just walking down the beach, and all of a sudden he turns and just takes a header, no arms first, head first, right into the water. And it's like 7 foot tall, 500-pound guy, and it's covered in hair. And I mean, obviously it's a Sasquatch. They're in Northern California. And so I don't know if he was committing suicide. I don't think so. I think he was swimming. I told another story just recently that this guy comes up to this river, and he comes to the edge of sand dunes. He walks up there and he sees one, and it's really light colored, but it's floating on its back, and all that's out of the water is the nose and mouth. But he can still see. It's just this far underwater and just floating there underneath the water, just floating by, and you can see the hair moving in the current. And it's like 6 to 8 inch long, blondish red hair, and it never moves. It just watches him. He could see it watching him with his eyes. He sits 15 feet away from him, and it just floats by with the current. Some of the craziest stuff. I'll go looking for the sworn affidavits, and which you can't find very many past 1950, 1960 at the latest. People just don't do that anymore. But that's if it's a story like that, I try to be objective as I can about them. People are putting these things out. I either go to the BFRO to find them, or
sorry,
you need to get the clapper, Jason. Yes.
It's motion activated.
Oh, I got you.
I just got to move.
Fair enough.
Sorry.
But so I've heard of them. They don't have any problems with the water. You know, the Zaski's down there in Florida have them
I
in the
think he
water.
means Matt Powers. I think he means Tom Seward, maybe. Has stories of Sasquatch swimming.
Yep, Tom's on Vancouver Island. Yeah, so he's goes out in boats all the time, and I think there's plenty of stories out there of them swimming. So we do know they do, but that's probably a good thing you didn't know that at the time.
Well, I just don't want to hear the clunk when the propeller hits it.
No doubt.
Here's an interesting question from Pat Turner. Are Bigfoot capable of making fire?
I don't know.
See, could this not be an accidental thing that may have happened with a bit of glass and a bit of straw or something like that? A bottle, some reflection off the sun that's created fire, and they've worked. I don't know.
I've heard of people abandoning camps. Like they leave their tent set up, they've got a fire going or dwindling. They leave most of their stuff in their camps and they take off. So whatever the Bigfoot has, you know, whether it be a lighter or matches, that could be a possibility, but probably unlikely.
I think it's unlikely. I don't think that it's not that they couldn't do it. I just don't think it would be advantageous to something that's covered in hair, for one thing, to start a fire. But it's going to give them away. You know, I don't think they have any use for it. I don't think they have any need for fire. No more than any other animal in the forest. Not that I'm saying that Bigfoot's, and how people have this thing about Bigfoot being animals, even though by definition an animal is anything living and breathing that's not human. And unless you think Bigfoot's human, then it must be an animal. But we're talking about words here. It's just a word. It's just a word. You know. So don't jump all over me because I called Bigfoot an animal.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah.
But that's just how I feel about it. Pat, we're going to do a late show tomorrow night with and Pat Turner. He's going to be on there with us, and we're going to finish the Donnie Miller story there tomorrow night. So y'all be there for that, 9:30 p.m. Central, right here.
Okay.
It's late for me.
It is late for you. That's why I don't have you on there with me, because I know it's late.
Yeah.
Right. You're 6 hours ahead, aren't you?
Yeah.
She's in the future.
You should be in bed right now.
Yeah, I know. I know. Tell me about it.
She's in the future.
I'm in the future.
Yeah.
I'm in the future.
The Unknown has one here.
Oh,
the blue line guys. Do they migrate through your area, or are they there all year? What do you think?
I think migration comes down to coverage. And what I mean by that is where they've got foliage, where they've got protection, where there's very little or no human presence. I think that's where they exist. Yeah, I mentioned the thing about the garbage dumpsters because maybe they're a little bit deprived. They might come into a small community or a small town. But I believe that for the amount of accounts that I've heard about Bigfoot looking in through a window, you have to look at what the circumstances are. Is this a farmhouse? Is it out in the middle of nowhere? And do you have a tree line? Do you have a property line? That sort of thing. Because I think that makes a world of difference to provide it with the necessary coverage it needs to remain elusive.
Absolutely. I think it's all situational. I don't think you could take one of these creatures, even if we found one somehow, and put it on a table and examined it and said, okay, this is how all Sasquatch are. No more than you could take a person and put it on a table and say, okay, this is how all people are. This is how big they are. This is how much they weigh. You know, this is how big they get at this age. And I just think it's just different. No more different than the Native American tribes in the Pacific Northwest and the Native American tribes in Florida back in the day. They didn't know what each other were doing. You
No.
know, they were different. So maybe some, to answer your question, Adam, possibly, I think some might migrate or move around within a 100 or 200 mile area, and then some just don't. They just stay put. It's just you know, it's our life experiences that that form who we are and what we do, and no different than hearing about the aggressive ones and hearing about the more passive ones that want to be your friend for whatever reason. You know, we hear these stories. They're just different. They're just not the same everywhere you go. And I think it's not, they don't have to be too far away to be very different from one another.
No.
That's just what I think. I think a lot about this.
No, I believe that. I believe that.
This is a good point. Wouldn't it be easy for Bigfoot to sun-dry meat for preservation? You know, just maybe they discovered that. They've just left meat out and realised it can last a bit longer than what they think. I don't know. And then store it.
Maybe that's just not how they think. You know, it's there's a difference in, you know, knowledge and intelligence. You know, I think Bigfoot are much more intelligent than we are. We just have more, you know, useless knowledge than they do. I think their ability to process is a lot faster to work things out. But as far as you know, what they know about their surroundings, and it has to be all about survival to me. You know, I don't think they're good or bad in any sense of in any moral sense. Are they good or evil? I think it's all about surviving. We don't have to worry about surviving. We know where our next meal is coming from. So we, you know, we tend to think a little bit differently, and we're able to to actually, you know, think and live a lot differently, a lot more bogged down, I think, than they would be. I just think that if it's not survival, there's no point in doing it at all. That's why I think sometimes they don't just grab us up, even if they have the opportunity, because if it's not helping them survive, why do it? You know.
Point. Lester Taylor, do you think your males migrate for a mate?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Well, you got to think at some point, even if there are family units, that the young teenage males are going to come into their own and want to go off and, you know, find a suitable mate. I think maybe, possibly. Who knows if clans communicate with one another and, hey, your daughter's going to marry my son and whatever, you know, they'll have lifelong partners. If one male has 10 females, you know, you'll hear people claim to know these things. But how anybody could possibly know it without some direct long-term observation?
I don't know.
It's an interesting notion.
Yeah,
well,
sure.
at some point, don't they? Some animals scare their young off when they know they've come to a certain age, like dogs with their puppies. Once they stop feeding off them, they don't have that relationship. And so, you know, I said it before, my dog would, you know, the mother and the son would do it together without even thinking twice about morals or whatever. You know, it's just human nature. So, you know, are they that advanced that they know not to mess with their sons and daughters? Would they not be sort of fighting? Is they not kind of like maybe alpha,
alpha,
around,
beta, yeah.
you know, going, you know, if you want to fight for it, we'll fight for our women. Will we not more battered Bigfoot about? I don't know.
I think they fight each other. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Here's Andy again. He's got one. As we ask Wes on Sasquatch Chronicles, what do you think these things are? Hey, man, no quoting Wes Germer. We love Wes Germer. Absolutely. But don't be quoting Wes Germer. What are you talking about? This is Bigfoot Odyssey.
Yeah. So what do you think they are, Jason?
I believe that there's a gap between Homo sapiens down to I forget the name of it. Homo
Right.
I forget the name
Homo erectus.
of it. Homo erectus, yes. I believe there's a gap. But why are they so large compared to us? Why do they have this big hulking body? So the only thing I can come down to is that it seems like the reports that we get from the north seem to describe a darker creature, black hair, thick hair, and as we move towards the south into the US, it gets lighter hair. So I believe that the body is building up a layer of insulation to prevent itself, obviously, from freezing. But as to what they are, it's, to me, it's a human-like creature, but just not fully there.
Not fully human. I don't know the whole color thing. You know, the one I saw was in South Mississippi, and he was black. This is,
Was he?
I mean,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, we hear of different colors, obviously, all around here: red, white, blonde. You know, black, dark brown. You know, all over. You know, the Southeast, and we tend to hear them. I hear a lot of stories, and you know, we tend to hear them just different colors everywhere. I think it's, like I said, no different than people. You know, you're had different
True.
skin tones, and you know, one thing that does, we don't know what the population of Sasquatch are, and we don't know that they're all this big huge thing. You know, a lot of people say, oh, I saw one, a 4 foot tall one over there, it was a juvenile. Well, you don't know that. It could have been full grown. We just don't know that they all get huge like that. There's plenty of people that are 7 foot plus and weigh 400 pounds too. So I just think hybridization causes things to be larger. You know, you mix a lion with a tiger, it's called a liger, and this thing is way bigger than either of the parents. You know, so I think hybridization causes things to be larger. So maybe that this is something that humans that somehow have gotten into the mix and bred with. To me, they look awfully human in the face. You know,
They do.
hooded
They do.
noses, and you know, human shaped feet, human shaped hands. There's no divergent toe, you know, going on there, even though they may have that, you know, articulated foot that people talk about, you know, the
Right.
whatever that is in the foot. It's still shaped like ours. It's just bigger. So I think there's something more human about them, especially the way they think and process, have emotional intelligence about them, are self-aware, aware enough to not to want to remain hidden and not be found out. And to me, it answers the question of the dead body. Why would they leave one of their dead around for us to find if they're trying to remain hidden? So I think they're able to know, if they could look into a mirror, they would know it was themselves. That's what I'm saying. When most animals don't, they look at it, they think it's another animal.
Which is the most remarkable thing about this species is the fact that we haven't found one.
Yeah, that we know of.
Well, yeah.
That's a whole other show right there. We got about a minute left. Let's take one more. Miss Bomber. How do your friends take your belief in this species? Canada is less accepting of Sasquatch and tend to make a mockery of it. Does your family accept your belief?
Yes, they certainly do. I've seen it. I've got the audio recording. I've seen it, and they're totally accepting of it. And it's the same thing what I said earlier, is that everyone basically resides around the Great Lakes. You go 2 hours north of Toronto, actually 2 hours north anywhere, and it's just bare, well, not bare, but it's just forest country. Like there are bears, there are moose, coyotes, wolves, cougars, and it's like, why wouldn't it be there? Oh, sorry, I got to turn my light on again.
You weren't moving enough. You got to flow your arms around a little bit. Well,
All's good.
To me, I think a lot of people, especially people that live in the city, have a very skewed sense of scale, and they don't understand the vastness of the forests in Canada, even in the U.S. They're just, it's just so vast. It could easily hide 2 or 3 million of these creatures, and us never ever, because we just don't go into those places.
You never see them. Yeah. Like
just,
Oregon, Washington, like all those places, you've got beautiful forests. No one's ever been there. So how do you know?
Well, I think the technology's catching up, and it's going to be made affordable. I think Doppler is going to be a big part of the public knowing about this creature soon. We just have to make it.
I think flying a drone around in a circle for about 7 hours.
I've got a drone that has a thermal camera on it, but it only stays up for 30 minutes before you got to bring it back.
Okay.
Another battery in it. So those ones that stay up for 7 hours are about $100,000, and we're not there yet. We're not even close to there yet. But we've got those things, and we are planning the expedition to Florida as soon as all this COVID mess is behind us, and we know for sure we're going to go make that film. But hey, it's been a great show. Jason Goldring, thank you so much for joining us here tonight.
Thank you.
Absolutely. You're welcome back anytime. Daniela, another awesome show. Do we know who we have on next week yet?
No, not yet.
All right, we'll work on that.
Yeah.
What do you have? I got a new video for the Shudder coming out tomorrow, number 41. It's going to be another fireside collection. Hope you guys check that out. If you haven't subscribed to the Shudder, go subscribe now. If you haven't subscribed to Hidden Existence, you're going to get several different shows that Daniela does on Hidden Existence, including the Researcher's Report. And who's next?
To be arranged.
To be arranged.
Yeah, there'll be something this Saturday. There'll be a Anything Goes on Sunday, and there'll be a walk over the weekend at some point. A live walk.
A live walk with Daniela on Hidden Existence, and Researcher's Report, 7:00 p.m. Central Time on Hidden Existence, and then Anything Goes with Jason and Daniela on Sunday. So thank you so much for that. Thanks again, Jason, for showing up here. Don't forget, 9:00 p.m. tonight, Paranormal Portal, 2-hour special show every Wednesday and Saturday with Brent and Don Longbeard. Not Brent Longbeard, Brent Thomas. Brent Thomas and Don Longbeard. But that's Paranormal Portal. Go check out Paranormal Portal. I'm going to try to be there tonight. So good night, everybody. Thanks for being here.
Take care. Thank you.
All right, Jason.